Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I interview CEO and founder of Elevation Society, Brittany Chung. Check it out. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of courage. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you're here today means the absolute world to us. And it's not just the royal we. I have an amazing guest. She goes by the name of Brittany Chung. How are you doing today, Brittany?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You mind if I share a little bit about your bio to introduce you? Okay, perfect. Brittany is a life lover, traveler, female tech founder, and CEO of the Cultivate Society app. She is also the founder of the nonprofit Elevation Society, which focuses on reducing suicide, bullying, and depression by uniting humans to collectively solve issues and showing every individual their life is worth fighting for. That's powerful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I've been involved for probably about the past 10 years in working with young people between the ages of 6 to 18
Nice.
and people who are survivors of abuse and people who are going through bullying.
Yeah.
So I really resonated with your nonprofit.
Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing that you've been so involved for 10 years.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about the inspiration that led to the founding of your nonprofit?
Yeah, of course. So when I was in college, a few days before graduation, I lost one of my friends to suicide. And I think when people usually tend to experience that, they naturally just ask themselves what they could have done differently and what did they miss. And so that's kind of what I went through. And I remember just being at her funeral and seeing her family and just seeing all the lives that will never be the same. And it just kind of broke me. And I was doing more and more research into it. And, we were 21 years old. I was doing more and more research and I realized that this isn't an outlier. This is so much more common than what we know it is. And for me, it was kind of okay, what can I do to kind of make it so that this isn't what other people go through and other people don't necessarily give up and other people can kind of hold on and know that their life has meaning, So that's kind of what started Elevation Society with the idea of let's show people that they matter. And so, yeah, it's been interesting and it's been good and fun.
That's wonderful. What made you decide to, rather than lend your efforts towards a different nonprofit organization, to found your own?
For me, a lot of there are amazing nonprofits out there. For me, I didn't necessarily see ones that were targeting a younger demographic. I think they just had a very broad scope, which is totally fine because suicide is an issue across ages. But for me, it was I wanted to find something that resonated and kind of attracted that younger demographic because they're the ones that right now, it's the second leading cause of death for between 15 and, right now they said 44, but other ones will give you different ages, but that's a crazy stat. And so for me, it was I want to target those younger demographics. And because our age range doesn't necessarily want to talk about mental health or suicide, and they're not as open about it. And I don't think anyone really is, but I think our demographic specifically, it's still kind of taboo, and we're getting better at doing so. But I wanted to kind of take it away from such a broad focus and narrow it into a certain age range. So that's why I started Elevation Society.
What's the age range that you're focusing on?
Right now, 15 to 34. So it's kind of a 20-year, but it's a good demographic.
Yeah, I'd agree with you because most of the programming I see are for middle school and high school age.
Yeah.
So you're kind of talking about, college and 20-year-olds.
Yeah, because it's scary. It's scary what is going on right now, and it's scary that the statistics are showing that nothing's really changing or nothing's really decreasing. It's more so increasing, especially among young girls. So I was all right, let's try to switch it up.
Why do you think it's increasing?
Well, from what I've read from studies, a lot of people are saying that it's like technology or cyberbullying, because nowadays you can't necessarily escape bullying. A lot of people are like not blaming, but saying that technology is influencing it as well, because, when you're consistently comparing yourself to perfect images on social media, you're kind of jaded at how you see yourself, and that can obviously lead to lower self-esteem, and a lot of that is just kind of scary. And then so I think that definitely has a lot to do. I think like we have such high standards that for girls, I think, and because it's increasing amongst them, I think I can see where social media has an impact in it. But those are one of the main reasons that I've read about. And I think those are probably the two things that kind of changed within these, decades, is technology and social media.
What are the programs that your nonprofit uses to address your mission?
Yeah, so right now we are doing events. So far we've done 18 events throughout the last, we became a 501c3 in 2016. And we've done 18 events. And previously it was kind of just doing very broad events that get people involved, but I wanted people to leave, seeing that they made a difference, seeing that they mattered. So the events that we did in the past kind of ranged, and I'll go into that later if you want, but the events that we plan on doing this year are more broad scope, like experiences, but the goal is to like attract younger people. It's something that I would want to go to. I'm like, it's different, like art therapy events or like letting go ceremonies, but it's the idea of attracting younger people, but creating the safe space to be able to talk about mental health and taking care of one's mental health, and creating a space where people are okay talking about it and not so taboo, but also educating them, certain tips you can do whenever you are feeling a certain way, and letting people know through these events that they're not alone, that, all of us at some degree are experiencing something. And so I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to issues. It's like, you feel like you're alone, you feel like you can't talk to anybody, and that just makes it that much worse. But letting people know that they're not alone, and letting people know that like what you may be going through, I've gone through, or what you may be going through, I know how you feel, or just knowing that we're all kind of one. At the end of the day, we're all kind of going through something. We're all work in progress. I think is really comforting.
So, yes, to know you're not alone.
Yeah, and I think all of us think we're alone at some point. So
you were saying that you create a safe space to have a conversation. What's the conversation that starts to come up once you create that feeling of safety?
Yeah, so for our events that are coming up this year, there's going to be 4 of them, and that's the focus of it. So our first one's in June, so we'll see what happens. But the ones that we've done before have been more of just like a more, I don't know how to put it. Like, can I give you examples of what we've done before?
Please do. That'd be wonderful.
So the most recent event we did was a female empowerment event where we brought in girls that were saved from sex trafficking, and we brought in women from different walks of life, and we kind of brought them together and talked about how we can end violence towards women. But then we also brought in Krav Maga teachers, which Krav Maga is an amazing Israeli type fighting, which is really practical. And it's, I don't know how familiar you are, but a lot, like when you think of martial arts, when you think of like jiu-jitsu, it's all an art form, but it's very much like you have to prepare, you have to like get into stance. Krav Maga is really good for like if for the worst case happens and you're on the ground and someone's trying to beat you up, like this is how you get out of it enough to run away. Or if you're like, and I know like if you're like walking in heels, like this is what you can do. So it's very practical, and I think it resonates a lot with women. But we brought in Krav Maga teachers and we taught all these people like how to fight, and talked about how we can end violence towards women. And for that, it was like when we talked about it, when we had this open discussion, we were like, all right, if you see something, say something. If you see someone feeling uncomfortable, do something about it. So it was a lot of like, just be there for each other type of thing. And it was interesting to hear other people's perspectives. These young girls, they've gone through probably more than most of us can imagine. And so hearing their stories as well was really beautiful. But we've done different events like that. Or I live in Los Angeles, so we would go to Skid Row and we would help feed the homeless. And for that, it was a matter of like when you're there, when you're giving back, and like just, opening your eyes and realizing that this life is so much more than, like sometimes we tend to like look inward and just focus on our problems. But when you're helping other people and when you're using your life for a bigger purpose, you start to realize that this life is so much bigger than you. And so that's another event we did. And then what I did before was I kind of individualized the art of giving back. So we brought in a lawyer and a few of his peers to a underserved area in Miami. And then we also brought in police officers, and we kind of educated the kids about knowing your rights, but also kind of united the community, because when you're also there to hear police perspectives, what they deal with the day-to-day, you kind of see things from different angles, and it's not just like one-sided. So we've done stuff like that, and then the list goes on, but I don't want to keep boring you.
It's not boring. It's exciting.
That's what we've done in the past. And so before it was very like broad, it was very like just finding ways that people want to get involved, just giving different diverse ways that people can help for the most part. So before it was very broad, but I think as with anything, when you start something, you start with this idea and then you kind of refine it. So where we're going with these next 4 events this year will be a lot different and a lot more focused and driven towards mental health and talking about it. So yeah,
powerful work.
Hopefully it did.
So first you said you're in Los Angeles, but then you said you did something in Miami.
Yeah, we've done events in Miami, LA, Seattle, and Dallas. Like when we were in Dallas, we did something really small, but it meant a lot to me and everyone that was there. But when we were in Dallas a few days before Thanksgiving, roughly like 2 years ago, we gave out free hugs, which I know that's not a thing, but we did it by the subway station. And it was amazing because the stories that you heard, something so simple as a hug, and I'm sure nowadays there's a lot of people doing free hugs, which is awesome. But when we were doing it, there was a lady who recently just lost her dad, and it was right before the holidays, and she kind of felt alone. And so for her, she was just telling us her whole life and telling us like how much the simple act of a hug meant. And then for other girls, there's 2 girls that literally just got out of prison, and they're like, you don't understand. They're like, I don't remember the last time I've been hugged. One, because when you're in prison, you can't touch people, but also beyond that, they're like, their family doesn't really hug. So it's like something so small can make a difference. And it's like that's kind of another underlying factor of elevation society. You don't need much to make a difference, So, yeah.
Woo! That gave me shivers. That was really inspiring.
Yeah.
How do you select the city that you do your work in?
Well, I've had ties with all of them. So like for me, my family lives in Dallas. So when I was there in Thanksgiving, I was like, all right, I'm going to get all my friends together and we're going to do something like with our holiday and, give back. And then I also went to school in Miami for college. So when I would go back there and like all of the alumni are back, right, let's make an Elevation Society event out of it. And then the Seattle, we actually had somebody outsource. So somebody wanted to do an event where they helped feed the homeless in Seattle. And so they like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So we're not just restricted to LA.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
do you mind if I ask you some questions from the perspective of you as a business owner?
Right.
So where do you find the resources and the courage and all of that to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to found this company. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. In regards to the resources, I think it's been a long time coming, and I'm still learning because quite honestly, when it comes to nonprofit, there's not that many resources online that tell you what to do. So I'm still kind of learning, and I'm doing like research into grant writing. A lot of things have been donation based so far, and a lot of like when I would do events with like when we would go to Skid Row or we would go to other places in Miami, like Trader Joe's and other like Publix. I don't know if everyone's familiar, but that's a great grocery store as well. Like they're so open and donating. And so a lot of it's been through like using having other companies help us. And I'm still learning. So for me, what was really important as a nonprofit is I wanted to be solely for the cause. So everything that is donated goes 100% to the cause. So for me, like I still have, I'm a hustler. I still have another way of I still have like another area to make money in because I think it's really pivotal because I think the only thing you have is your word as a nonprofit and is the trust that you build in your brand name. And I know sometimes nonprofits get a very bad look if they are, giving an obnoxious amount of money towards like the people, the CEO or the people that work on the board. And so I want to keep their integrity there. So for me, like 100% of the donations right now are going to the actual cause. And I like to travel. So I'm like, I'll get another job to work that, and I won't take any money. So yeah.
Is it also through your own entrepreneurship, the other job?
Kind of. So for me, it's not necessarily, and it's more of like I get to work later hours, which is great, but it's not necessarily, like my own thing.
I got you. But it allows you to fund to give 100% to your nonprofit.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What do you think are some misconceptions people have about bullying?
About bullying. I think even the subtle things, I think people, sometimes when they think about bullying, they think of like just being flat out mean or just saying like, you're whatever. But I think sometimes bullying comes in other forms. It's not necessarily as blunt. You can tear people down by trying to be not necessarily like, you can be mean, but you don't necessarily, like, it could be like little subtle things. It could be little hints or sarcasm where, like, when the end of the day, if you're trying to bring someone down, I think that's what bullying is. But sometimes people aren't necessarily aware of it. And sometimes people will give backhanded compliments or like, just little ways. And so it's not necessarily saying the blunt things of like, you are this, but it's also like kind of putting like seeds in people's minds, thinking that they're not good enough. I think that also has to do with bullying as well.
Yes. And how do you work with people to become self-aware that they are bullying?
That they are bullying or being bullied?
No, that they're doing the bullying.
Well, in regards to that, I don't necessarily think that we focus on the bullier as much as we do on the ones that are being bullied.
Okay.
And when people, it's a matter of, a lot of it stems from like, I think everyone experiences bullying to some degree, but I think it's also like, when it comes to withstanding the bullying and being able to be stronger than that, I think it's knowing your worth. And so what we do is we kind of try to influence and like show people that, again, their life matters, but show people their worth, you know? And so it's a lot of like feeding them these positive mindsets and feeding them these different like tactics to be able to see past what these people might be telling them. Or for instance, like one of the events that we have, it will be in the summertime, but it's a thing called like, we're going to let go. It's going to be around a bonfire, which will be super cool. But the idea is to let go of, like either your past or people have consistently told you what you are, what you're not, and letting go of these things that people box you in to be, and kind of just, giving that away and being like, okay, this is what I'm not. And let's replace that mindset, or let's replace their words with our words and kind of give, all right, instead of thinking that I'm not good enough, I'm going to actually change my mindset and think that, I'm way better than what I think I am. Like, I'm more than enough. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
That answered your question.
It does. What are some of the mindsets that you try to share with people and encourage people to cultivate?
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many. I think that one is one of them, knowing that you are enough. I think a lot of it is sometimes we tend to let negativity like boil up and we let it avalanche and we let it keep going, but it's a matter of being conscious of that and stopping it and attracting, being like, okay, this is not how it's gonna go, like bad things happen and sometimes we tend to dwell on that, but when you dwell on that, you're feeding it. And so energy grows where energy goes. And so it's a matter of changing it and attracting. And I know it's so much easier said than done, but it's a matter of like knowing like, hey, like this happened, but I don't have to let that affect the rest of my day, and kind of letting that stop there. And then that's one of them. But I think us, if you like look at our Instagram feed, we're always trying to inspire in a different way. So, like different quotes or different things that kind of put people in that way of thinking. And I know for like mental health, the thing that they're really researching now is the food that you're eating. So the Wall Street Journal, they put out this amazing article about food and healing and depression. And so, the more healthier foods, like the fruits, the vegetables, they obviously impact your mindset and the chemicals in your brain a little bit differently. So it can actually, or studies are showing that it can actually, instead of just preventing depression, it can also help heal it. So certain little tidbits like that. And then different, like we have different like things on our community page. It's called Healthy Mindset, where we put out articles that are inspirational, but we also put quotes and we also put different things and, different art form, like different cultures, Chinese proverbs and different ways of thinking and just opening that broad scope. Yeah.
What was your pathway to starting to incorporate these mindsets and this knowledge and stuff like that into your own life?
I think I've actually, that's a good question. I think from a very young age, I've managed to be pretty optimistic and try to find the beauty in every situation. So, when really sucky situations would happen, and sucky is a bad word, but when really bad things would happen, it was always a matter of like, what's the lesson that needs to be learned from this? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like when I was able to start looking at things through that way and being like, there's purpose in pain and that there's a reason why I'm going through this. And once I learned that lesson, I can heal from it. But always developing that as a young, since I was young, being able to go through certain things and know that there's a bigger reason that I'm going through this. Because the way I see it is like the stuff that I've gone through, I can use to help other people. I can use it to let people know that they're not alone, but I can also if someone's going through it, I can be there for you as well because I know what you're going through. And I think that's what everyone kind of goes through. There's so many people that go through different things and they use that experience to help other people. And so when you kind of realize that, for me, I see this life isn't my own. I'm not here to fulfill and get money and I see it as a broader scope. I see it as there's a reason why I'm here, and it goes way beyond these superficial ideas that society tells you. And so I think I've been very fortunate, and I have amazing parents that have been able to instill that in me at a very young age and kind of develop that way. And I think that's what kind of got me on this path of positive thinking. It hasn't always been this way. I think last year I had a very rough year. And so I've always been someone that writes. And so for me, being able to write is my freedom of expression, and being able to write is my way of kind of talking to myself in a more normal way. And so for me, it was writing things down and writing notes to myself and being able to read over them constantly to remind myself, don't let this break you. And all of those different aspects have kind of cultivated my mindset.
And you had mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, that you do different art activities as part of your workshops with the people you work with.
Yeah, so we're going to do our first one. So we haven't done it yet, but we're doing our first one June 17th, I believe, which is a Sunday. So I'm super excited. But we're going to basically let people live and express and no boundaries. Everyone gets a blank canvas, and you can use that to symbolically paint your life, or you can use that to express how you're feeling. But art has been connected to helping people, relieve stress and helping people kind of understand their emotions and subconscious. And so we're kind of incorporate that into just letting people be themselves and no boundaries, but then be able to express it, talk about it and build from it. So, yeah.
Is that in LA?
Yeah, that would be in LA.
If folks are listening and saying, I want to be a part of this, how do they do that?
Yeah, for the event? Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you can do it anywhere you want to, but my goal is to be able to have different events in different cities all over every month. That's the direction I want Elevation Society to go to. But if people are interested in having it come to them as well, they can fill out a form online. It's just say contact us, but let us know where you are and what you're interested in, and then we'll do our best to bring it out to you as well.
What is the one that you're doing on the 17th open to the public?
Yeah.
And how can people come to that specific one?
If you go on to the elevationsociety.org/events, the first one will say the art event, and then you can sign up through there and get email confirmations.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the power of expressing yourself creatively like that have in your mission? How do you see it playing out and helping people?
Well, I think a lot of times we don't necessarily know. Sometimes we get so busy in life just going through things that we don't necessarily take time to, process our emotions, take time to reflect, take time to actually dwell in things. And a lot of times even if things are hurt, we'll just numb the pain and not just keep building on top of it and never properly heal. And so I think that influences a lot of things. And I think a lot of times people have had experiences in the past that they haven't necessarily healed from, and they don't even know it's still affecting them to this day. And so with art, I think that's really cool how you can just open it up. And things can spill out of you that you didn't even know. But we're going to kind of, once people, after they paint and, express themselves, or if they don't even have to paint, they can draw, whatever it is that they want to do. We're going to start to, pry into those questions. Like, what do you think this means? And then kind of go from there and build off of that. And so I think that all is a process of healing as well, is acknowledging.
Are you a facilitator as well?
Yes.
Where did you learn to facilitate, or how did you learn to facilitate?
I thought you meant like facilitating the event.
Do you facilitate? You said then we have a conversation. Do you facilitate that conversation?
Yeah. So I'll be the one who's probably running the conversation. Yeah.
Where did you learn how to do that, or did you just teach yourself, or what was your journey as a facilitator?
I think I taught myself, but when I was in school, I also studied psychology. So I studied psychology. I first started psychology when I was in high school, but it's always been a passion of mine to understand how the brain works and understand like the different elements and different theories and stuff. So for me, and I've always just kind of been a very inquisitive person. So I always just I'm curious, like I'm genuinely curious about everything. So that also kind of helps me facilitate.
Yeah, because that's the best when you have a curious facilitator.
Yeah. Probably a lot more curious than I should be, but hopefully it works out.
That's awesome. Do you prepare your questions in advance?
I do. I will prepare them. I haven't prepared them yet because I still have like a month to go, and I have the broad scope of them, but I haven't prepared every single question yet.
What, if you could share with us, what's a conversation or something that's come up in a workshop that you're able to share that's been really impactful for you?
Well, so far, because our first workshop is in June, so next month. But some of the things that I have gotten through the website is I've gotten a lot of parents reaching out about their kid who's suicidal, and the parents don't know what to do. And I think that's one of the most scariest things if you are a parent, to have your kid and you don't know what to do. There's no guide on how to help your kid dealing with all of the stuff that's going on. And so I've gotten a lot more than I like to have, of parents reaching out. And I guess for me, that was kind of a wake up call, because that's also like the kids aren't necessarily seeking help, but the parents are. But when I've talked to the parents, I've kind of been like, okay, first, I obviously recommend if their kid is at that state to seek out professional help. And I know that it's not always the easiest things, because systematically we don't fund that much money to mental health as much as they should. But I do recommend always seeking professional help, because those people are years worth of experience in schooling, and they know a lot more than because I'm just doing it out of passion. These people have done it for a living. So I always recommend seeking out professional ones. So giving them, the suicide hotline, which again isn't necessarily just for suicide. It's also an emotional support. So you can call them about anything, but giving them those resources, but then also looking into it deeper and being like, okay, what are they passionate about? What does your kids see? How, getting them to start having these conversations with their kids. That's not so mom and dad, like the sex talk, but having it be more conversational and friendly, not necessarily being I think when we talk to our parents, we typically, when you're younger, you see them as your parents, so you don't necessarily listen to them, and you don't necessarily value their insight as much as you should, because you're a parent. But being able to have a more conversational and giving the parents tips on all right, maybe if you look into this, and having them look into this, and what are they passionate about, and how can they use that, and kind of building from there. So I think that's what I've learned through the online web community.
That's wonderful. And that was going to be my next question. How has social media and the internet been helping you to share the mission of your nonprofit?
Yeah, so social media is great. It's great and it's not great, but for the most part, I've been able to outreach and get a lot of more people interested. And then one of the things that I recently started doing is when you look at hashtags, and you look at hashtags depression, or hashtag all of these other things, you can see people start to be open and express themselves. And some people are just being this is me, I'm upset, and they don't necessarily, they're not looking for comfort or anything, but they are just letting people know that they're not alone. And that's what we kind of try to do too, is when we see those types of posts, offer some type of comfort, offer people support, and offer people this idea of like, you're strong, obviously, for going through this, but like, if there's any way we can help, or if there's anything that you need, like reach out to us. And so social media has been very influential in that aspect. And this month is mental health awareness. So what we've dedicated like our Facebook and Twitter to is, facts about mental health every single day. Because I don't think we're as aware as we should be about what's going on. 1 in every 5 is dealing with some mental health. Only 40% actually seeks help. But when people do seek help, 70-90% actually see a difference. So like different things like that kind of just educate the public, I think are also really important. And that's what social media is really good at as well. It's just expressing, but sharing to a vast amount of people knowledge, and then, different studies as well, and being able to express and share those is key.
And do you lead the social media?
I do. I have someone on our team who is doing marketing, but for the most part, I am leading the social media aspect.
And what are some tactics for folks listening that are, looking to use social media to share their mission and their message?
Yeah.
What are some tactics that you can recommend that you found get the word out?
I really like Hootsuite because you're able to just sit down and knock them all out at once for the most part. So I did like a month worth of content for Facebook and Twitter in like a matter of 3 hours, because when you're in the zone, you're in the zone. But I think that's also been super helpful. And if people are watching and they are a nonprofit, everything's half of what the actual cost is. So that's also super helpful.
Just to clarify for folks listening, Hootsuite schedules your posts for you, right?
Yeah.
So you're scheduling a month's worth of posts in a 3-hour time block?
Yeah, because I think what's really important as an entrepreneur is time blocking your time. I'm someone that's really like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. But like being able to sit down and work on one thing at a time and conquering that actual tactic at that time is super important. So I think, Hootsuite's very, very great when it comes to getting all your stuff out there, because even if you go on vacation, you don't want to like be on your phone tweeting. Like you this gives you the freedom to still be able to work on other stuff and not have to be in the actual time of when you need to post it. I think that's been super helpful. I think when it comes to Instagram specifically, like hashtags are super influential when it comes to, I think Instagram's kind of changing their algorithm, so I think it can only limit it how many you use. But I think that's also key when it comes to attracting new customers. What else? And also Instagram has that whole business platform, so you can see your analytics as well, which then kind of shows like, all right, this is the audience that I'm attracting. This is what I want to attract. This is the area. So that's super helpful. And what else?
Helpful in what way?
Being able to know. So if I'm noticing that if I've started posting a different type of if I started posting just quotes, because before I would post like pictures of different events. If I started posting just quotes and I've looked at my analytics for that week and I see that, okay, I've had a massive influence or incline when it comes to young girls looking into it, then that kind of shows me which direction to go in, So then like, okay, maybe I'll post more quotes, or maybe, and let's try. And it's a lot of like testing as you go, A to B testing. But I think that's really helpful when you can be able to see who your audience is and see what they're resonating with, looking at your comments and being like, okay, gotten these comments from girls. Okay, they like these types of posts. They like the more open, honest types of posts. They like the more inspirational posts. So it's good because obviously when it comes to your social media, you're building everything for someone else. It's not about you. It's about what you can offer them. And so being able to learn from your audience and learn what they like is key.
When you were saying you use hashtags on Instagram, do you mean using hashtags on your pictures or searching hashtags and liking and commenting people who are using those hashtags?
Both. For our Instagram, we do like to post on Elevation Society Instagram. We do like to post hashtags, and then we also go ahead and like people who are involved in nonprofits, or who are volunteering, or who are writing inspirational things about self-love and stuff. So kind of both, give and take.
How many hours a week would you say you spend liking and commenting on people using the hashtags associated with your nonprofit?
I would probably say, in regards to liking, I'd probably say like 1 to 2 hours.
A week?
Oh, a week, sorry.
Oh, a day? 1 to 2 hours a day?
7 hours a week.
So you'll just take like an hour, set it aside, where you just go through a certain hashtag and like and comment?
Yeah, but you can kind of do it while you're doing other things as well.
Nice.
Like multitasking while I'm eating.
What's the difference between actually engaging on the hashtag versus spam?
I think, well, that's a good question. I think spam, when I think of spam, I more so think of like going into people's inboxes, and I think that, and like just sending very generic things that are like, buy this lotion or something, because I've gotten a few of those.
Yeah.
Like,
look at my profile.
Yeah. Or like, here's a pyramid scheme. If you let me know if you're interested in selling like pills, So I think of that more as spam. But I think what we're trying to do differently is like, if people are posting inspirational stuff, like liking that, I think that's important, because that's more significant, or if they're expressing vulnerability or being just completely open and not trying to make this facade of just being perfect. I think that there's power in that. So I like to think that's different than spam.
Me too. And I think in the world of Autobot likes, where people are paying to auto like pictures and stuff, that it's important, like you were saying, that you're actually a part of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. How many posts do you try to schedule a day for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter?
Instagram, I'm not that good at. Instagram is probably the biggest platform that you should be using as an entrepreneur, because I think that's the one that right now, compared to Facebook and Twitter, has a massive, massive audience. So shame on me for not utilizing it more. And so that's the one I'm not as good at. Ideally, I posted once a day on Instagram, but I don't know if you've seen our feed it's very fluctuates. So I can, so we can have posts from like, I don't know, 3 months ago still in our top 9, so don't learn from me when it comes to that aspect. Post every day. It's important.
What about Facebook and Twitter? When you schedule, how many do you try to schedule a day?
Well, I'm really proud of myself, because this month I posted, basically for Twitter, we were doing 2 tweets a day, and Facebook 1 to 2 posts a day for this month. Before that, it fluctuated as well. But because I recently got Hootsuite, I think that will change. One thing to be careful about with Hootsuite, though, is for Instagram, because they are changing their algorithm. If you post through third party like Hootsuite, it tends to not show up in so many people's feeds. So you'll see a decline in your engagement for the most part when you're posting through third parties like Hootsuite. So be careful.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you letting me ask you. I'm always fascinated by people's social media games. So I appreciate you letting me ask specific questions.
Nice.
So these are my last line of questions, and then I know you need to get going. You might have heard me say at the beginning that this is my year of courage.
Yeah.
So the reason is that I think when we think of courage, we're thinking of people running into burning buildings or, throwing themselves in front of a moving, like crazy things, Yeah. I think it's more every day.
Yeah.
So I want to have conversations with awesome people like you about what is courage.
Oh, what a good question. What is courage? I think courage is looking past your fears, whether it's small things like public speaking. That's not a small thing, but it's very small things or big things. I think it's being able to look past it and conquer them, and just kind of not necessarily be scared of anything, because there's nothing to be scared of. I mean, I guess death is something to be scared about, but other than that, I think courage is kind of just looking past your current situation and not letting fear hold you back from all that you can become, and not talking yourself out of it for the most part. Little things like, if it's like you have a job, when you're an entrepreneur, I think it's a little bit different, because you always have to put yourself out that you are your brand, you are your business. So you're a little bit more courageous in business aspect. Or so I think, but even if it's something like you're working at a job, talking about your boss and not being afraid to talk about getting a raise, or not being afraid to talk about, maybe seeking a different area, or being like, I would love to maybe possibly start working with so-and-so and see how that works. But just living life to the fullest. is kind of courageous, letting nothing hold you back and being fully present in the moment and being all that you can and maximize every moment, I think is courageous.
I love that.
It's kind of all over the place of things.
No, it was great. It was great. In the context of the work you do, bullying, suicide, depression, what is courage? How does courage relate to that context?
Yeah, I think courage is not knowing, but being okay with your flaws. Courage is loving yourself and knowing and understanding and still appreciating who you are and all that you are. Courage is standing up for other people when they are being bullied, or standing up for yourself when you are being bullied. Courage is, not letting people's words influence who you are and not taking people's negativity and kind of letting that impact you. Courage is being able to, still remain positive and still remain hopeful, even when other people are trying to bring you down. And hopefully, because of your actions, be able to help other people bring themselves up as well. I think courage is all of that. I think courage is also being able to kind of, I guess, rely on your own strength at times too. And knowing that you're strong because you've made it through everything that you've made it through this far, A lot of times when we are in down situations, we think that this is the worst that it's ever been. But when you look over all things that you've gone through, you realize that you've been through some hard times and this is just another hard time that you can make it through as well. So I think that's kind of what courage has to do with suicide and bullying and depression, and knowing that you're everything that you were created to be. So, yeah.
I mean, do you have a courage role model?
My mom would probably be my courage role model. She is, and I feel like probably a lot of people say that, but my mom, she's amazing. She, to give you background, she military brat, moved all over the place, but I'm mixed. My mom's African American, and she was able to work her way up to a position, to being the highest ranked position when she was working for a private aviation company for a female and minority. And so for me, being able to watch her take those strides, and she didn't have a formal college experience. I think she might have gone, I don't think she might have gone to trade school. I don't even know if she did that. But then being able to people who are submitting their resumes are Yale graduates, and being able to see her work from not much and be able to build to where she is today, I think is amazing. And to see the lives that she's impacted along the way is just so encouraging and courageous to me. So she's definitely one of those role models.
I hope you share this with her.
Yeah, for sure. I tell her all the time too.
That's wonderful. Last question for you. What is the reward of being courageous?
What is the reward of being courageous? Living your best life. I think when you're courageous, you're invincible. Nothing can stop you. You've gone past all your fears. Nothing's holding you back from completely being who you are. And I know a lot of times some of us don't always know who we are, but even if it's a matter of creating who you are, there is nothing. You can be whatever you want to be. And so I think courage can give you the ability to just be whoever and be all that you can be and live your life to the fullest.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been such an awesome experience and interview. I really appreciate, you shedding light on a topic that should be talked about more. So thank you so much.
This has been awesome. You asked some very amazing questions.
Oh, thank you.
Made me think a lot.
Where can folks support your nonprofit, donate, follow you, let you know how much they appreciate you? Where can they do all of that?
So our website is theelevatioonsociety.org. That's where you can find our community. That's where you can find how to get involved. That's where you can contact us. That's where you can also donate. And then in regards to social media, we have Elevation Society is Instagram, Elevation Society is Facebook, and then Twitter is Elevate Society.
Perfect. For those on the go, listening, cleaning, any of that, and you're like, oh, I couldn't get that. Show notes, tomearl.com/elevate, ELEVATE, tomearl.com/elevate. And all of the links, all the notes, head there. Look, how much is a coffee these days? $5. If you could, I know it's cliche, but skip the coffee this week. Donate $5. It'll go a long way. As you already heard, 100% will go towards preventing bullying, suicide, and depression. And in an age group that you've already said is often neglected, especially when you think of young people who are in the foster care system. That's the age that they're phased out. So they go from having support to no support at all right at the age of 18.
Yeah.
So Brittany's nonprofit is there for all of us who a lot of times have experienced some of our deepest depression when we leave high school and are off on our own. And imagine if you had somebody there for you like Elevation Society. So at least share $5. I know if all of our listeners do, we can fund a program for some awesome people.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I'd love for you to have the last word. So my question is, what is your invitation to people? What would you like them to consider doing, thinking, listening to? What's your invitation?
What's my invitation? I think my invitation would be to, I have so many invitations, but I guess one of my big invitations would be to spread kindness. I think that's needed in this world. I think accepting people, despite the differences and seeing past the differences, and just spreading love and kind of using your life, because you were given this life for a reason. So being able to use that, and even if it's something as small as being kind and opening the door or saying thank you, whatever it is, just be kind, because that spreads, I believe. I think that's important.
Yes. I hope y'all take Brittany up on that invitation.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you once again, Brittany. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great weekend.
You too. Appreciate it. And to everybody listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.